Broncos country, welcome back to another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be recapping the Denver Broncos victory over the Green Bay Packers 34-26 to clinch a playoff spot for the second year in a row, and now having the longest active winning streak right at 11 games. So very, very impressive stretch here from the Broncos. And the Green Bay Packers, they are a really good team. So we're going to jump into the recap here in just a second. But the first thing that I want to say is this video is going to be different from my traditional videos. Typically, I like to script and make the graphics for the video to kind of go over the points that I want to talk about and kind of have it in an orderly fashion. But with me not uploading for a little bit of time due to some personal reasons, and then me getting lazy because of not uploading, trying to get back in that habit, we're going to be probably bouncing around the place a whole lot in this video. So I apologize for that. And I just wanted to give you a heads up here while we're getting into this video. But if you do enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. And let's get into this recap. So of course, we're going to start with the Broncos. I'm a Broncos fan, so let's go ahead. Let's talk about Bo Nix, who had a fantastic game, right? He was 23 for 34 for 302 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and had a 134.7 passer rating. Now, I'm not going to be ignorant to the fact that he could have had a couple of passes that were intercepted from a couple of balls that were thrown and were bobbled in the air, and the Packers could have easily come down with those interceptions, as well as there were a couple of bad reads or throws that Bo made that easily could have been made for interceptions. Xavier McKinney, I think he dropped 2 interceptions. I believe Valentine dropped an interception. So there were a couple of interceptions that could have occurred. Luckily, they didn't, and Bo Nix had a fantastic game. Honestly, I would say probably his best game of the season right now, just off the top of my head, right? 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. I guess you could argue the Giants game, but that wasn't really a complete game. That was a fourth quarter comeback. So I thought Bo Nix played fantastic. I believe he only had 1 incompletion in the first half, and that was on a target to Evan Ingram, where one of his arms was being held by Micah Parsons. And on that note, I want to talk about 2 things. The first thing, obviously, Micah Parsons and Christian Watson both went down with injuries, so prayers up to them. I'm wishing them a very speedy and healthy recovery, as well as everyone who got injured today, because there were so many injuries that occurred throughout the entire NFL. So I'm hoping all those players heal up quickly and get back to the field as soon as possible, because just as a human, I don't like to see other players getting injured. And then the second thing is on that Evan Ingram's arm being held. That sucks. There were 2 calls, though, that I really didn't like. And I'm going to be honest, I don't like blaming the refs for a loss, right? I'll be honest, when at the game and kind of in the game, in the heat of the moment, yeah, I'm going to be blaming the refs and get pissed at them for these certain calls. But at the end of the day, I think blaming the refs for an entire loss is kind of stupid. But I just want to go over the 2 calls that, I didn't think were great. Let me move this because my chair decided to shrink down. The first one was when we threw the ball to Troy Franklin on a screen pass. He broke through the line, and then he ended up kind of getting rolled over, but he wasn't down. His knee never touched the ground, and he landed on his feet and got back up and ran to the end zone for what should have been a touchdown, but the refs blew the play dead early, so that negated the penalty or the touchdown there. And I know why they blow the whistle down early. It's for player safety, right? You don't want any late hits occurring when a play should have been blown dead, but I think we need to hold off a little bit and not get too anxious in blowing the plays dead, because this is the second time this season that this has happened to the Broncos. Earlier in the year when we were playing the Chiefs, Jaleel McLaughlin, he made a Chiefs player miss in the backfield and then bursted for a big gain. But because the refs blew the whistle down early, it ended up going for a loss of 3 yards. So I do think the refs need to not be so anxious to blow the whistle dead on that note. But the second one that I didn't like is the Riley Moss DPI. He was holding the receiver's hand or the arm a little bit, but I think that's kind of a ticky-tacky pass interference call that I really don't think should have been called. Riley Moss, he does get targeted a lot, and he does draw a lot of DPI flags. Some of them are deserved, but some of them also aren't deserved. Anyway, not that those had, they did have some impact on the game, right? But I just wanted to go over those two calls as calls that I didn't really like from the officiating. And of course, officials are never going to be perfect, but those are just two that I wanted to mention for this game. All right. Jumping back into this game, for the rushing attack, RJ Harvey led the way with 19 carries for 65 yards, averaging 3.4 carry with 1 touchdown. And I like RJ Harvey, right? But he's not the biggest rusher, right? 3.4 yards per carry isn't fantastic, right? I would like to see that more around 4 yards per carry. That's honestly, that's just my preference, right? At the minimum. And I like RJ Harvey, but I think he's a solid complementary receiving back, right? Obviously, he's still a rookie. He's still growing, and he still has more room to improve. And I think a little bit of the thing we need to do is utilize Harvey properly, right? I think he's better when we let him go outside the tackle, and just use his speed to get yards there, in my opinion. But yeah, I do think that losing J.K. Dobbins obviously hurts, right? RJ Harvey, still a rookie, like I mentioned earlier, so he can and probably will improve here, right? More of a receiving back, although didn't have a big game in the receiving game, only had 1 target, but no catches. And then other than that, really no other player helped in their rushing attack, right? 89 yards. Need to get more of a ground game involved for the offense. Bo Nix had 10 yards, and there were some moments when I thought, hey, Bo should just scramble here and pick up some yards. But in fact, he actually decided to throw it down the field, and they ended up being good decisions because they resulted in more yards on the play rather than what he would have gotten likely had he scrambled. But yeah, the only designed run that I can remember off the top of my head in this game for Bo Nix was at the end of the game when we were trying to wind the clock, and he went down the right sideline and then ended up sliding down inbounds to keep the clock going. Would like to see Bo Nix use his legs a little bit more in the rushing attack with J.K. Dobbins out and R.J. Harvey still developing as a running back. Adam Prentice lost a yard on that 4th down conversion, which sucks, coming off of his best game last week versus the Raiders. And then, of course, you have Marvin Mims being utilized as a gadget guy. Troy Franklin got a carry. And then I would have liked to see Jaleel McLaughlin get involved a little bit more. I still think RJ Harvey should get a majority of the carries for this offense. And McLaughlin should get some complimentary carries. Would have liked him to see him get more than 2 carries. And honestly, I believe both of those carries, maybe just one of them, was when RJ Harvey actually went down with an injury towards the end of the game. So we'll have to monitor that and see what his status is going to be next week versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I will say Harvey did lose a fumble earlier in the game, but after that, he honestly was playing really, really solid, right? He was initiating contact and he was running through opponents, and he was just running with anger, you could see on the field after. Obviously, he fumbled the ball and then got benched for a couple plays for McLaughlin earlier in the game. And so, yeah, I think one of the carries later in the game was McLaughlin, and one was after he went in for Harvey for a play on that second series. As for the receivers, Troy Franklin and Courtland Sutton both had fantastic games. Sutton had 7 receptions for 113 yards and a score. And Sutton, he is honestly just that reliable receiver, right? He is going to be that big body guy. He's going to go up, get the 50-50 balls. You can throw a back shoulder ball to him, and he's going to come down with it. And just a reliable guy. But not only that, Bo hit him in stride a couple of times in this game. One of them was for a touchdown. One of them was for a long gain down the right sideline, and the other was a big gain down the left sideline. So, yeah, 113 yards, 16.1 yards average per reception. Sutton had a phenomenal game, as did Franklin, right? Targeted 6 times, brought in all 6 receptions, which you love to see, right? I know a lot of people are getting down on Troy Franklin recently due to his drops, and while I understand that, I still personally am a Troy Franklin believer, and yeah, I still like him for the future of this team. Had 85 yards, 1 touchdown or in this game, right? I feel like Troy Franklin is kind of like a big wave this season. He has these like elite games, and then sometimes you don't notice him, and then elite game, and just kind of going up and down a wave. Little Jordan Humphrey was phenomenal, all right, with 42 yards and a touchdown. Honestly, just a nice, solid receiver, especially with Pat Bryant being out, who I think has honestly become one of the 3 best receivers on the team for the Broncos. And I don't think, honestly, that's crazy to say that, right? Just has reliable hands and just really a sure target, someone who's going to help in the running game as well as a blocker. So missing him was a big loss this week, but Lil Jordan Humphrey had a solid game, 3 receptions for 42 yards, obviously, and the score. I believe that was the second touchdown of the game. And then Wes Welker, Michael Bandy kind of looks a little similar wearing that 83 jersey. Only had 1 reception for 20 yards, but it was his first ever NFL touchdown coming out of the University of San Diego. I believe he was an undrafted free agent, was with the Chargers for a little bit, and then has been with us for the past few seasons on the practice squad. So it's cool to see Michael Bandy get his first NFL touchdown after bouncing around so long, and finally getting that is really, really cool to see. I would like to see Evan Ingram involved a little bit more, right? I think he's just this mismatch at the tight end position, and I know a lot of people think that as well, but feels like we don't target him a whole lot and we're not utilizing him properly, right? So I would like to see Evan Ingram get more involved, right? Obviously had the 3 targets, but only had 1 reception. I would like to see him get targeted a little bit more. Obviously, that's just something I would like to see. I'm obviously not a coach or anything. I'm not trying to change what Sean Payton does here, but just something I would like to see. And Tyler Bidet, I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. They probably have. Now, whenever Tyler Bidet's in the backfield, more than likely it's going to be a pass, right? He's the best pass protector at the running back position on the team, in my opinion. So when he's in there, more than likely it is going to be a pass. That's just something that I picked up on. But yeah, Tyler Bidet obviously had 1 reception for a yard, as you can see. On the defensive side of the football, let's talk about the cornerbacks, Pat Surtain and Riley Moss, each of them bringing in an interception. For Jordan Love, honestly, he had those 2 interceptions, but I don't know if I can blame both of them, both of the interceptions on Jordan Love. Definitely one of them isn't on Jordan Love because Dontavian Wicks, he batted the ball in the air, and then Riley Moss was able to bring it down for the pick. And then the Pat Surtain one, it's interesting. He made a heck of a play to jump in front of Christian Watson and come down with the interception. Again, prayers up to Christian Watson. Sucks to see that he got injured on that play. It did look like Jordan Love kind of underthrew Christian Watson on that play, but at the same time, Pat Surtain made a heck of a play to bring down that interception. As for the defense, they brought down Jordan Love 3 times for sacks, right? Zach Allen and Jonathan Cooper each getting a half a sack, with Dondre Tillman and Jonah Ellis each getting to Jordan Love once. And man, I think we're so lucky to have Jonah Ellis as our number 3 edge rusher. He is such a phenomenal player at rushing the passer. Has been hurt the past few weeks, right? But he gets after the quarterback and he pressures the quarterback. I believe he was getting double teamed and he kind of just broke through that double team to get after Jordan Love. He was phenomenal. One thing I did notice is that Brandon Jones didn't seem to play in the second half, at least from what I noticed. Maybe he came back in eventually, but it was PJ Locke who filled in for Brandon Jones, and he played pretty solid in replacement of Brandon Jones. But it does suck to see Brandon Jones getting injured, so we will have to keep an eye on that for next week when we're doing the preview, what the status of Brandon Jones is. Hufanga played great. He was flying around. He was everywhere, right? He had that insane play where it was a screen to Josh Jacobs, and Hufanga just went in, took out the lead blocker, and then tackled Josh Jacobs at the same time. That was an insane play. Dre Greenlaw, he laid a big hit on Josh Jacobs in this game as well. But yeah, honestly, really, really solid from the defense later on in the game, right? Started off the game pretty slow, allowing 5 scores on the first 5 Packers offensive possessions, and they did bend and break a little bit, right? allowing 2 field goals on those first 2 drives to the Packers, right? They bend, and then they held them two field goals. And then obviously there was that big Josh Jacobs run, which came after that Riley Moss DPI. Already talked about that. But yeah, the defense, after starting off a little bit slow, they locked in and they got it together. But the offense, they were clicking, and this is the type of play calling that we need to see throughout, right, through the rest of the year and throughout the playoffs, right? Bo Nix, throwing it deep, not just checking it down every now and then. Give him the opportunity. It doesn't have to be a deep shot every play. These medium to, like, these intermediate type of throws that Bo Nix is making, like these 20, 30 yards throws, I like what they're doing, right? So keep Bo Nix in this rhythm. Let the offense keep cooking like this. Maybe get the running game a little bit more involved, right? Obviously, this is just me after watching the game entirely, and then I went back and just watched the YouTube highlights. Of course, the highlights are only going to show the positive plays, but I do want to jump back in and look at this game again. So these are just my initial thoughts after watching the game and then watching the highlights to kind of remind myself the key plays that went on for this game. But yeah, these are my initial thoughts. Let me know what your initial thoughts are in the comment section below. The Denver Broncos are 12-2 and playoff bound. Let's go Broncos country. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I can't wait to see you in a future video. So until then, peace out.